Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We have our friend Colby Armstrong and, of course, a regular Tina Hart with us. And, Colby, you've never been on the show before, and I appreciate you jumping on. I've known you for, what, 4 years now or so?
Yeah, it seems like it's...
you have an ever-growing operation. Tell everybody where you're at and what company you represent.
Yeah, so my name's Colby, like you just mentioned. I'm out of Nashville, Tennessee. I started this company in 2019. I worked for a roofing company before starting this business, and we did all kinds of exterior projects, roofing, gutters, siding, windows. So I worked for them for almost 3 years, and then branched out and started my own company here in Nashville. So,
what were you doing before you jumped? What role were you playing for that other company?
Yeah, so I was a salesman and estimator for that company. So mostly roofing is what we were doing, but a little bit of gutters, a little bit of windows and siding, full exterior remodeling company.
Excellent. Great. So sales the whole time, 4 years of that?
Yeah, it was actually a little under 3 years, but estimating sales. I did some repairs, it was a smaller office of a bigger company, so they had me filling in different roles and doing some production.
So you think is that where you flex the most? I mean, it's always interesting to talk. Usually it's the installer that jumps in and is like, I'm going to set up my own gutter business. This is fresh to hear it from the sales guy's perspective. So I mean, we could talk forever about this. I'm really intrigued by your history, your background, and your approach to the business. Tina, would you agree? Usually it's like an installer that branches off and it's like, I'm the best installer on the team. I can go do my own thing.
Yes, and I'm really curious too, like what made you take the leap, and like did you feel like you had the entrepreneur spirit rolling into that, or did it just kind of create from being in that position?
Yeah, so kind of, growing up, I always kind of had that entrepreneurial drive. I had like a lawn care business in high school, towed a lawnmower and trailer around cutting grass. So it's always kind of been there. And really, even when I started working for that roofing company, I always had in the back of my mind that I was probably going to start my own company. So really, I was, I worked hard for them and tried to do a good job for them, but I was learning as I was working there from their systems and what I could use to start my own company eventually.
Sure.
So yeah, it's always kind of been there. And I was just kind of looking for the right opportunity and the right niche to get out there and start something on my own.
Well, of course, we applaud your entrepreneurship. When you left, did you immediately go hunting for installers, or you already had a few before you made was that like mapped out before you made the leap?
Yeah, so when I first started the company, I was strictly selling and doing estimates and then using subcontractors for production.
Love it.
So for the full first year, it was just me doing sales and production management, project manager role, and then using subcontractors for the install.
Very clean. I'm sure you were able to fluff up fast, right? I mean, you were able to make money and put money to the side. That model tends to allow for a little excess in cash flow.
Exactly. Yeah. So and that's kind of when I worked for the roofing company that I worked for, that's where I saw the opportunity. When we would do roofs, siding, windows, it would be a huge project, lasting 3 or 4 days. There might be more issues. Whenever I would sell gutters, it would be like, half a day, 4 to 6 hours. They're in and they're out. Good gross profit margins. Yeah. I liked that model. So that's kind of what made me jump into that. And I already had some subcontractor relationships from working for that other company. So that's kind of how I saw that opportunity.
It's kind of like what draws us all in, right? I mean, mistaking gutter is not like making a mistake in ordering windows. You screw up the window measurements, you're screwed. That's a big mess up. Gutter, you cut it out, throw it out to the side, and maybe use it tomorrow on the next job. But
small problems, definitely. It definitely looked and sounded easier from the beginning to get to the level that I'm at now. When in my mind, I was like, well, what could go wrong? It can't be that hard.
Well, basically, everything has to go wrong in order for it to go right, right? You've got to screw everything up at one point, and then when you have it right.
Yeah, from a salesman standpoint, working for the old company, it seems like everything's pretty easy. I was like, I can do that on my own, and I can do it better. should be a piece of cake.
Well, that's big of you to say that, actually. That's a huge personal growth thing. I mean, for you to say, hey, it wasn't as easy as I thought, it's
no,
huge.
definitely not. Yeah.
What were the bigger stumbling blocks, if I could ask?
I think it's only been 4 years since I started. I kind of got started in the middle of 2019. So, but I think really some of the biggest hurdles and stumbling blocks have been, hiring, recruiting, and training people to work within the company, managing people, different personalities, sometimes acting as a therapist, or like you're just managing emotions. Sometimes is what it feels like. That can get really frustrating and stressful, especially when you're in a position where it's just you and like one truck, and one guy is extremely emotional. He can kind of hold you hostage in a way, where you have to keep him happy because you need him. So I don't miss that phase at all. Where you're like hiring out of desperation and then trying to keep people that are, all over the map, stressing you out all the time. So those were some of the biggest hurdles and stumbling blocks along the way.
It sounded like you did go 1099 out of the gates, and then I'm assuming you now have W-2 staff. Did you change?
Exactly. Yeah. So I did that for like the first year, strictly subcontractors, and then somewhere within 6 months to a year, I started to think maybe I would have a whole lot more control over quality and scheduling and all that stuff if I could get in-house W-2 crews. So I started, I got my first truck, set that up, and I'd never personally installed any gutters at that point. I strictly, I'd done some repairs and stuff at that point and started to learn how to do it. Now I can install gutters by default. Yeah, I figured it out, but
I love that.
That wasn't my plan.
Hey, there's so many roles, right? I mean, it's like, it's funny when I know people that own gutter companies that have probably never even been on a gutter job. They certainly can't install. They're just the financial backing. I mean, you don't have to be some wizard installer to own a gutter company. Business has so many flavors.
If you don't know how to do the service, it forces you to have to figure out how I'm going to get someone else to do it. To do that part so that I can actually run the business, which is a whole nother aspect of installing and running a business are two very different things. So two very different skill sets. So if you don't know how to install it, it forces you to almost level up in a way and delegate those things.
Well, it sounds like you have your chops already in 4 years, because I could see how lightly you're treading and how delicate you are about these very touchy subjects. I mean, there's no right or wrong. We know in talking to we all communicate with this large audience. And some people are hard set on W-2 scenarios, and others use the 1099. I'm 1099. Actually, that's a lie. So I had W-2 staff for 11 years or so. And then it was a mess. It was just running a daycare center. A lot of nonsense, a lot of drama, a lot of, I don't want to say bullying, but like, two guys would, gang up on one and kind of make him feel like an outsider, and who's complaining before work starts. I don't want to work with so-and-so. I'm like, guys, just get the job done. So I will say, I mean, moving from that model to 1099, my numbers became fixed, and it was very, very easy and clean and linear to grow. But also the drama stuff went away. I really that ended, and the only guys that wanted to come do work are like the big boys that don't have any issues, that are just like, we just come here and get things done. We just smash work, and we don't have any drama in our crew. We're ready to go. So absolutely, there's no right answer.
Yeah, I've experienced that whole spectrum. So we went from 1099 to fully staffed W-2 crews. We had four crews running of W-2 installers, in-house crews.
Wow.
And now we're scaling that. Now we're like 50-50, half subcontractors, half W-2 crews.
All right, so I've been there. Now, how is that? How is the how's your in-house staff feel about the 10? Are they threatened by the 1099s? It tends to be the way that goes.
It definitely adds some competition in there. I think when they hear about, when they hear about a sub crew coming in and doing the same type of job or the same job that they did in half the time, and no drama, I think it kind of lights a little bit of a fire under our guys. And the crews that we have left that are W-2 in-house crews, these are the guys that are left are a whole lot less drama. Like, they're the ones that kind of after everything fell into place and weeded out, they're the ones that stuck around. So.
But for the guys at home that are trying to figure all this out, according to Colby, when does Colby make a decision to keep, send an in-house crew to the job or to send it out to a 1099? How do you separate? Is it actually the larger stuff goes out and the bigger, more intimate jobs stay in-house, or what's your strategy?
Yeah, so the way that we do it is basically, so we schedule our in-house crews first, and then we use our subcontractor crews as overflow, or if we have a customer that is like urgent, wants to get their gutters done right now, and if we can sign them up today, we can install it in the next 2 or 3 days, we'll use a subcontractor. So we basically are using our subs as overflow. If we get booked out past 2 weeks, we'll start scheduling our subcontractors more jobs. That's what I preach, 2 weeks. Anything outside of 2 weeks, to me, your homeowners start to get a little shaky in the knees. It's like, wait a minute, I have to wait? Why do I have to wait? Everybody's so used to getting everything so fast, especially if they're ready to cut a check. They're like, no, I want this gutter tomorrow. I'm ready to go. You're the one holding us up. Yeah, and when you have a list of good subs that you work with day in and day out, I can get any job done tomorrow or in 2 days pretty quickly, because I can just reach out to my list of subcontractors and get it taken care of. See, how far out do you guys book?
On average, we're pretty much 2 weeks out, like most of the year. But in the fall, it does get a little crazy. But so does every company in our area usually. So be as far as like 5 weeks out sometimes in the fall or winter. But it's just like a super good conversation with the homeowner. And we do have a deposit that's required. So we don't really lose people. And as long as we're really upfront with people, it doesn't tend to be an issue. But I say the same thing. Like if it's an average year and you're 4 or 5 weeks out, like you need probably another crew,
Yeah. So, I mean, like the peak times of the year, same thing with us. Maybe sometimes 4, 5 weeks. Right now, there's a couple of jobs that had to wait like 6, but we were waiting on material. But we all hear these guys that are like, all right, I'm 4 months out, or 5 months out. I'm like, your business is broken, dude. Like, what is going on? Yeah, they're saying it like a flex, like they're bragging about it. I'm like, whoa, you have major problems. If you're
I see that.
5 months out on production, that's not healthy.
Yeah, I think there's usually, when someone's booked out that far, a lot of times there's a pricing issue. They probably need to raise their price.
For sure.
Because people are booking with them 6 months out because they're so usually there's some kind of, that's a red flag to me if someone's booked out that far.
You're like, I'll wait 6 months to save $2,000.
Yeah,
I mean, people buy and sell houses in 6 months in my neighborhood. Like, what the hell's going on? 6 months is an eternity.
If I was booked out 6 months, what's the harm in doubling your price? You're booked out, you might as well just ask whatever you want.
That's just it. Yeah. Like I said, coming full circle, right? 2 weeks is like an ideal sweet spot for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like this kind of wraps up with what we're talking about. So I'm curious what your thoughts are. So I have a magic number in my head that if our conversion rate is X or more is when I know, we need to adjust prices. So for me, that number is anything over 60. Like if we're over 60%, I'm like, we need to raise prices. And I say 45 to 55 is what the average goal should be. That's like the sweet spot. What do you guys think?
45 is actually it's like just south of 50% conversion. I think it's like edgy as far as like best dollar you can get per foot. But that's on a very consistent salesperson that you could kind of track that way. I do average dollar per lead, and I'm doing a gutter school presentation on that. I really think that conversion, those numbers, that KPI is much healthier to look at, but it only makes sense if you have like 3 sales guys or so. Yeah, so you can like compare one guy to the next. because conversions on, like right now I have a sales guy that works 2 days a week. So like his conversion rate, his closing ratio compared to somebody selling 5 days a week, you can't compare the two, because if he comes in, he's like, I'm at 80%. I'm like, but you only did 4 estimates this week. Like it's skewed. To me, average dollar per lead, how much money per the average lead you send somebody out on, that tells a lot. I mean, those will jump drastically. If you do a few different lines of business, like Colby, did you get into power washing and soft washing and that stuff?
No, we haven't really added. We haven't added any service outside of gutters, gutter guards, and gutter cleaning. So.
Good for you. 4 years. Yeah. And I know we've talked, and I know that this is a public forum, but do you care to share how large you are in revenues within 4 years' time?
Yeah. So last year in 2023 we ended around 2.6, right under 2.6 million. And
so there you go, guys. 4 years' time he did this, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So your market's popping down there then.
Definitely. I think that's been a huge, it's definitely been a help to be in a market like Nashville. Everything's growing. People are moving here. A lot of stuff going on in the market. So that certainly hasn't hurt me at all. It's really helped, and the timing worked out with COVID. Ended up actually helping our industry a lot. It seemed like it's definitely here in Nashville, because we didn't have any kind of shutdowns or anything like that. So as soon as that stimulus money hit, it was a good thing. It was a good thing for the gutter industry. Nashville's,
I mean, it's one of those up and coming cities where there's maybe like a dozen right now around the country that are just, Austin's another one, right? Like just these cities where just still this heavy influx of people surging to come into that community, and there's scarcity on construction. Or when I see photos of gutters in Nashville, it's like everything's new, everything's completely remodeled, new construction, which is always a good sign.
We haven't really. We don't do a lot of new construction. We have a few custom builders that we do work for, but most of our work is within Nashville is just retail, like replacement on retail customers, basically.
I mean, I know you both do retail. To me, that's everything. I try to make that 80% of our work, because tends to be the best money for the effort. I know we all do commercial. Tina, how much commercial work are you doing? So I want to talk about Colby's commercial too.
Yeah, we used to try to focus a lot more effort on that as we were growing, but I think there's definitely good and bad with commercial. And I think we've kind of toned down a little bit. Like, we definitely advertise for it, but it's just such a long turnaround time for payment. And some of the projects here, we did 2 massive projects that were like that development mix that you see a lot now, that's like patio home, townhome, apartment, condo, like all in one huge, complex. Yep. And some of those projects take us 8 months, to complete. There's 250 little tiny homes in that whole complex. And so we had 2 of those over last year, and that was just like a huge undertaking. I mean, I almost was committing an entire crew like just to doing that. And when you look at all the management that went behind it, it was just eating up a ton of our time. So now it's like, I do want those jobs, but I'm bidding them at what I need for it to make sense. And there's definitely people in our industry that will like bid them so cheap just to get them. Yeah, but what they don't realize is like all the back end work that goes with that. Like, I'm not like every other job, you're looking at a little bit of overhead and some office time, your sales guy and that crew. But on a huge construction project like that takes 8 months, I mean, you're talking hours and hours of like billable time, office time.
I got so frustrated with that when I was young and conscientious. Not that I'm not conscientious still, but when you just take anything because you're just scrambling. We did a ton of it, and I still take on some commercial work, but for the most part, I'm so tired and jaded on the same job that in a residential scenario, you'd be in and out in a day. You have to go back 3 times, or you read the fine print and like some jerk dents your downspout, like the electrician dents your downspout, and then they call you back. The GC calls you back and he's like, "Downspout's dented," and I'm like, "Here are my photos from when my guys finished that job. You could see it wasn't dead. Doesn't matter. You got a substantial completion and we're holding up your 20%. And it's like, okay, yeah, you got me. You think you got me? I'll never work for you guys again. And And it is. It's like a run around, and then it's hurry, hurry, hurry. You show up, and someone's pouring concrete. You can't put ladders on half of the building. You're like, dude, you just called me and harassed me to get here, and I can't work here. Wow, you could do half of the building. So it's so unproductive, I find, right? It doesn't matter at the largest scale building forever, the whole community, you got, 10,000 feet. It doesn't matter. It's still, they find a way to make this unprofitable, or like take a pound of flesh every time you show up. I just got tired of it. I'm like, let the next sucker take those jobs and get beat up. Unless it's going to go my way, which is, for me, my way is, don't call me to come every 50 feet that I need to hang. Yeah. Oh, the building's done? I don't care. Do you have 3 buildings done? Do you have 4? But usually they don't give much respect to the gutter guy, right? We're kind of like, just slapping in the last-ditch effort so they can get their CO and get paid. But I mean, that's my 2 cents. I just find like it's a rarity to find a big-scale commercial job that you walk away and you go, and I made a killing on it too. Like they're never just like super windfalls. But I know I feel like, Colby, you were doing some like commercial box gutter on a airplane hangars or something a couple of years ago. Tell me about that. Yeah. What was that about?
Yeah, so that project was a separate hangar at a private hangar at the Nashville airport. So that job came through a commercial roofing company. And that's who a lot of our commercial projects that we do come through commercial roofing companies. And we found that little pocket has treated us pretty well.
Awesome.
Working for general contractors and new construction builders has been exactly what you said. Like you nailed it, knocked it out of the park. That's exactly what it's like. They want you to come out in phases and complete little chunks and sections of the job, and then it eats into your profit margins. When you're doing it like that versus after they complete the whole project, coming to do all the gutters in 1 week or 2 weeks and get out of there. Much more profitable for us. But yeah, that airport hangar was, it was a private jet hangar. It had like 2 G6
cool.
private jets in there. I can't remember what they were called, but they were sweet. We got to at least take a little peek in there and pretend we were there for the jets, but really we were there for the gutters.
I think you just nailed it on the head, though. The commercial contractor, not to be confused with the residential GC. Commercial contractors that do stuff like that, right? If you're getting hired at an airport, obviously you've been vetted and you this isn't your first rodeo. Those guys tend to be very buttoned up, or at least buttoned up enough where you could convey what your better interests are, and you could have these types of conversations on the front side, and they'll accommodate. I find that they're highly oiled professional machines, those types of guys.
Yeah, and we found they're just a whole lot easier to work with versus like a GC. GCs kind of set everything up in order to favor them, especially with payment. No deposit, net 30, net 90. So they're basically, you're giving them a loan interest free for 90 days, basically on the labor and materials. With commercial roofers, they're flexible. They'll pay a deposit for materials, and they'll pay us for our work within 7 to 14 days. They still will, we'll have disputes over little things like, we'll complete a job and there's like a piece of concrete that needs to be repaired, and they'll hold the whole payment of the job until we repair the $500 concrete, which is kind of, it's a little nitpicky stuff like that, but it's much, much easier to work with those guys than builders.
So how much does that represent?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just wondering, how much does that represent of your business? 20%, something like that?
Actually, in 2023, it was closer to 30 or 40% commercial versus residential. The bigger percentage being residential, but it's inching towards 50-50. It seems like almost.
Okay. And then, what do you see for growth for you in Nashville? Is that a place you can continue to grow from within in the local zips, or what's your game plan? Are you spreading?
Yeah, I think right now our main focus is growing here within Nashville, and obviously we're taking jobs outside of Nashville as long as they're a decent enough size to send crews out to, travel to, and complete the job, come back, and still make a little bit of money. Sure. So But yeah, I think there's a lot more potential here in the Nashville market before we even think about branching out, adding new branches or adding services here in Nashville. And that, that's definitely something I've considered instead of adding branches of gutter companies in different cities, adding services to my company here in Nashville.
Yep.
Just kind of like, the chicken or the egg. Like,
well, they say it's a lot easier to take the client base you have if you've been keeping them happy and add more services, because you could leverage the same client base versus finding new clients. They, by the books, nothing's more expensive than new client acquisition. However, it depends. I mean, some industries and markets and services are relatively transient, where like rain gutters, people don't think they're going to establish a relationship with you, right? They're like, hopefully I never need rain gutters again. Why would I call you? Like, because they maintain them. I mean, these things need to be cleaned and serviced, and people don't even think about that stuff. In fact, it's weird where we are, we're in the Connecticut, New York metro area. There's so many homeowners that have never owned a home before. They've coming out of the city. COVID kind of displaced everybody. And I can't tell you how many people I talk to on a daily basis. So they don't even know, they can't change a light bulb. They don't know what the next step is in home maintenance. And they're totally clueless. So it's like a re-education. Actually, it's a reminder to guys like us. You need to kind of have a step-by-step on your website at a minimum. We should be sending e-newsletters that remind people what happens each season or each month. And because people, it's not even a reminder. They don't even know. It's like this is a first-time education for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Do you guys focus a lot on gutter cleaning and maintenance plans, things like that, like recurring revenue?
I was just talking about this with my wife yesterday. Out of the gates, I started 22 years ago. I hated them. Why? Because I was installing, and it was almost like I had my nose in the air. I knew that's where the money was. I didn't want to be tied up in cleanings. However, I bought the guy I started my company with. I bought him out in 2012. And as soon as I did, I went, oh my God, we really should have a balance here. We should be leveraging gutter cleaning clients and using them as feeder fish for new leads and new work. But it takes a team approach. Your guys out there have to be not just head down cleaning gutters. They have to be doing a 5-point inspection for you at a minimum. So sometimes you can dial guys in. Right now, our guys are dialed in. We did, $320,000 last year in gutter cleanings. I'd like to see that. Yeah, I'd like to see that approaching $1 million. I mean, definitely over 500,000. But I think this is all conceptual because I'm not there yet by my own business. But by the numbers, if you have that and your guys are doing, if they're doing cleanings once, twice a year, take a photo of the roof for me. Take a couple photos of the roof. Yeah. Put them in company cam. If there's a lull, some of the girls in the office could just breeze through company cam and try to, or, put a note in company cam that's flags and tags somebody, tag a sales guy. Hey, this roof is shot. You need to go look at it. You really could use that low hanging fruit. A couple hundred. I mean, our average cleaning is $325, $329. A couple $100, get in the door, and then, hope to build that relationship and get the roof and get the gutters and get everything else. But you got to be prepared to do that 1-2 punch. You can't try to swing for the fences every time. Tina, do you guys do cleanings?
Yeah, we've gone back and forth over the years. When we first started, we definitely took, I think everyone does, right? When you first start, you're like, I'll take anything, you're just trying to make money, keep everybody working. And so we definitely, I would say, were way more cleaning, service, repair stuff friendly when we started. But then about a year or two into it, you start running your numbers and you kind of start to learn, oh, shoot, I'm making literally $0 by going to this type of job. Yeah. So then you have to raise our prices. And so, I think it's tough because you get a lot of window cleaning companies that are doing gutters for $89 or $109 or something.
Hard to compete with that,
we definitely weren't afraid to jump our prices up. Like there for a while, I minimum was like $450 to do really virtually anything, even like go hang a downspout, clean a gutter, any, you know, because it was just like, if we're going to get it, we have to be profitable. Like, and something I say all the time is like, we're not going to work just to work. And I hear so many business owners do that they're so afraid that they're going to look like they're not working or they don't have enough work for the guys, that they'll literally be willing to work for free. So I think it's finding out your overhead and your expenses and making sure that you're profitable. And if you are, then I say like, I mean, I think everybody should do it. Just make sure you're charging it enough to be profitable. So when you get them, it's not a burden. But we also have a service crew that does those. So it's not like my installers are out doing that.
You know, here's another thing too that's critical, I think, for some guys. Some guys are already working on exit strategy, or very cognizant of that as they make their moves. I will tell you, based on current events and the way of the world and how people are buying companies out, they do not valuate system installations. The revenue you make on gutter installation, which is bananas, because that's the mainstay of how we make our income. And we're like, well, what do you, and here I am, I'll fight it and say, well, I have 22 years of financial history. Every year I do a couple $1 million worth of installations. Doesn't matter, apparently. These guys want rain gutter, they want repetitive contracts.
Yeah, recurring revenue.
Ned Stevens of the world want, recurring income, easy low-hanging fruit. They don't want to have to, know what it is, because if they're buying you out, they just want it on autopilot. They want gutter cleanings. There's no thinking involved with a gutter cleaning. Installation, they're worried that when they buy you out and you're no longer part of the business, they're going to lose you, the salesman, the system designer, and now they're not going to be able to get those sales. So you just sold them a bill of goods. But I don't agree with that. I think you guys don't agree with that either. But I will say, for you guys out there that are trying to maybe work on an exit strategy, stacking contracts for gutter cleanings is it's a very smart thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's super important, especially for those reasons that you said. The companies that are interested in buying our companies they really value the recurring revenue, and they value it a lot higher multiples than they value gutter installation.
And it's really backwards, but
and I think it is tough for us in the gutter industry because we don't it's a totally different model. We're selling a recurring contract and finding. I mean, we're used to in, out.
Right.
So I feel like I have years where we really thrive in that area where we're designed a whole program. Ruby, Emerald, Diamond. We come once a year, twice a year. And then we get all elaborate, here's what it's going to look like. Here's what's included. And then the next year we're so busy with installs that we're forget about it. So hard to stay consistent with that.
Move all the service guys into install trucks, and then you only have one service guy left. It's well, yes, the cleanings are out the window. No, I think it's almost two separate businesses that you have to run, a service, or certainly two different departments. So a service department for cleanings and repairs, and then an install department, completely different crews.
Well, and I feel like it's hard in a sales guy's perspective too, because you're in such a mindset of selling gutter. You're not even thinking about at that time of selling gutter, I also want to come back and clean it. And so it's tough. I continually talk to our team about, hey, make sure every single quote has an optional upsell or reoccurring. If it's a repair, we better see an optional for full replacement. If it's gutter installation, we better see an optional cover.
That's a great idea.
It got to a point, I totally agree, and it got to the point here where I carved out a new sales role. I hired a guy just for gutter cleanings. And honestly, he didn't last long. He was here maybe 4.5 months. He just wasn't the right guy for the job. He didn't have the drive or the hustle. But I feel like instead of giving somebody, hey, sell all this stuff, if you really want to drive home those cleanings, I think there's a way to structure it for one guy to go out and build that book of business. And you got to maybe taper off on how you pay him, or load it on the front side before he starts building a book. It's going to take him a little while to get momentum. But to have somebody all day, every day, just cleanings, like Tina just said, not trying to get the systems and then using the cleanings as the last ditch resort on a sale, that just by the way it's structured is going to fail. And the dedicated thing, I think, is critical. What we do is we have such a book of business that's recurring and repeat that we're able to just focus on it twice a year, the spring and the spring and the fall. They'll pick up the girls in the office will pick up the phones and make like a big push and send a bunch of new estimates or proposals out. If we need to up pricing, we do it, but we do it in a big wave with a bunch of drip campaign behind it, a bunch of email touches behind it.
Yeah.
No right or wrong. I wanted to ask you, Colby, are you a native Nashville guy, or did you move there for business?
Yeah, so I was born in Memphis, which is like 3 hours southwest of Nashville. But my family moved here to Nashville when I was 5 or 6 years old.
Oh,
so
sweet. Oh, so you're right in your element.
Yeah.
Last time I saw you I saw you at GutterCon, but I saw you at Nashville too for the big convention, and you were right in your element. I knew you lived locally. I'm like, this dude's he's in his sweet spot right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm jealous. Nashville's awesome.
Yeah. Broadway.
I think I've seen Colby about 10 times. I think every time I see Colby, I'm like, I'd really love to work out in Nashville. I think every time I see him at GutterCon, I'm like, I really would love to work in Nashville if you ever want to expand.
Yeah,
I'm right. I mean,
I wouldn't say once you live here, I probably the time that I saw you guys at Broadway might have been the last time I was on Broadway. But
is that right?
I don't go down there much, but I used to go a lot as a young.
A little too hot down there, right? Like as far as action, like. You have a family, it's like you can't handle that all the time, but it is a good time though, man. That was fun.
So I have a question for you, Colby.
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like people that get in that sweet spot between 2.5 to 3.5 million, I really feel like you start to feel like, what do I do now? Because and I wanted to talk about that with you because that's something that's just been on my mind a lot. It's like once, we hit 3 million, it was, everyone, the buzz in the gutter industry is like, oh, it's so hard to get past 3 million, or it's not smart to have more than 3 million in one location. And, you just hear all this chatter. And so for me, I've been trying to figure out, okay, what's next? How do I get another million? And so I guess with all that being said, like, what is your goal and what do you feel like your business model maybe is missing to get to that next, tier? Because that's like a lot of what's going on in my head this year.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think we're in very similar spots as far as company size and, where we're at and what the future looks like. But yeah, I would say, like for my company and me in particular, there's a lot of options that, I'm going back and forth between, adding, like I said earlier, either adding services to our business here to grow locally or starting to branch out. I'm leaning more towards adding services. And I don't think that we're maxed out by any means here in Nashville. There's a lot of things that for the gutter service alone, I think there's a lot of things that we're not doing right now that we could implement just to do more business in just gutters.
I think you both should get into dry wells and consider a little drainage spin on your business because it fits so well.
I thought you said drywall at first. I was like, I don't know about dry wells. That's gutter related, I think.
I mean, you put downspouts on right now. It's such an easy upsell to the discerning customer, the discerning homeowner that just has that nitty natty yard. When you look at that house, you're like, oh, I could sell them dry wells. They don't want that water on the surface. Maybe they have sod and it's like just pristine. It's you'd be surprised. You do 3 or 4 downspouts that are critical ones around the property, and you could really add to the bottom line. It's nice little money grab.
Absolutely.
Well, the other thing I feel like for us as a company, I feel like what we're struggling is combining services. Like I would like to track it. I don't yet. And I'm curious if you do, but
why is it a struggle?
Percentage of jobs that you sell a full install, how many of those have covers?
Mm-hmm. Do I know
that?
I don't know what the percentage is. I would say it's, probably less than 30%, I would say.
Yeah,
it's not.
me too. And I feel like that's a huge area of opportunity. And I'm just trying
Definitely.
to, other than like adding the optional line item every time,
Yeah.
you know, and then we've also implemented WeAC now. So it's like when you do have that optional, we have had 2 people. We've only been with WeAC maybe a month. And I have had 2 people already that were just cleaning quotes, and we added the optional full install instead of just like cleaning and repairing it. And because they felt like they could afford that extra bump with the payment, they still paid, you know, half in cash.
Yeah.
They financed the difference to be able to afford really what they needed. And so I feel like that's going to be potentially a big help. But yeah, I was just curious if you found any workarounds in your business of how to kind of get the most out of, you know, value out of that lead you already have right in front of you, you know?
Yeah, I think financing is a huge opportunity that, I mean, probably our company and all other companies in our industry are missing out on. Because if you look at other trades and other industries, windows, roofing, all of HVAC, plumbing, they're financing like 80% of their projects.
So the statistic is like 51% of all home improvement projects get financed. Now, that still would fall under the umbrella of, I'm going to use my credit card. Because
which most people are doing that.
Well, you know what? That does raise another good point. There's a lot of contractors that don't take credit cards, and they're like, "No, I don't need to do that." I'm like, "You need to do that.
Definitely.
It's just another weapon in your back pocket." Now, do you have to use it? No, but I mean, if you have that job where the customer is just not paying cash, it has to go on a card. Why would you lose that job? I mean,
it's pretty simple to set up. It's really not at this point. You're doing yourself a major disservice if you're not taking credit cards. I mean,
Tina, were you able to figure out the deposit on WeAC?
You can still require the deposit.
In excess of what? Can you go to 50%, or is it like?
Yeah, we have 50% deposit.
I'm going to tell the girls to trigger that because it's so easy to fold it into Jobber.
Well, what I love about it is on there, you know, it literally shows them their payment, just like on Amazon or Klarna.
Right on the quote. Right?
Consumers are used to seeing, you know, it's like, $469 a month. Cause I've had, you know, Green Sky financing, we had Enhancify, integrate with Jobber. So it's like you have to physically tell them and then give them an application. Then you got to take the application. You have no idea what their payment or rates are going to be, you know, so it's just not easy. And with WeAC, it's like, you don't even really have to pitch it. They see it every time they open their quote. So it's not like you have to shove it down their, you know, throat. Like, I have financing. If you want financing, you know, they just see it. Oh, do I want it? And the couple that we've gotten already were 0% for 3 months. So people just helped tide people over a little bit, and they didn't pay anything, you know. So I'm really curious how that will.
Now, do you pay? I didn't get that deep with WeAC. Did they?
It'll tell you what your percentage is of what the fee is based on what program they chose. But I think the last couple were like 3.5%, which is like a credit card, basically. You know what we're paying. So I just told, when we launched it, I just told our estimators, you know, hey, make sure you're going up by 3% to absorb some of this. You know, and especially if they seem super interested in that, then make sure you're just pricing it to kind of cover a little bit of that. But
with WeAC, what percentage of customers have you seen going? Even with it embedded in the email, how many people are using it so far?
Yeah, we've just started using it. I want to say maybe 2 weeks, and I don't know how many people have applied, but I know we had 2 already upsell and sign. And
so you know what, we need a heat map to see. To your point, like how many people hit the button to see what the payment would be. Like, I bet you a lot of people looked at it and didn't choose to do it, Tina, but like they did explore that. To the point that, it's very good to have it. Imagine not having that. The guy with very few options or one option, I only do cash. It's amazing how guys operate. But, you're going to get it.
They got 3 different quotes, and I'm the only one that offers financing, but I cost a little bit more than, and it's 0%. Cost them anything extra to go with me. I just think that, that might be a little bit extra leverage. So
for sure.
Yeah, I think financing is definitely a huge opportunity. But I feel like there is some. In my business, there's some missing opportunity where where we still probably are financing less than 5% of our jobs, maybe 2 or 3%. So I know there's a lot of opportunity there. It's just, I think in the sales process, pitching it in the correct way to where it's just the normal way we do business.
Green Sky does a good job of trying to educate if you let them. I mean, I guess there's different reps, and some of them are artful and some of them are not. But I know with financing, the strategy is to introduce it early on and just you have to say it in such a way that you're trying to read the customer to say, hey, and by the way, we do offer financing, because they're either going to have one reaction or the other. They're either going to go, I don't need that. I'm not going to be financing it. And then before you price the job, they just told me they're not going to. Although some people are really wily and are crazy, and they know it, and they tell you that, and then you price the job and you come in at an aggressive price, and then they go, oh, you know what, I think I will finance it. But there are people too that will say right away that thank God you do, because I was going to ask you, but you told me before I asked. I need it.
Well, and here's a couple of things that I need to implement, because we're still so new to it, that I think will help with what we're talking about. Is one, they give you a ton of graphics to use in marketing, and you can, once you approve with them, you can get brochures, postcards, like they give you everything for free. You just go on their website, you order what you want, and you don't even have to pay to have it printed or anything. So step one, I would say, like implementation with that, like the route we're going to go, we haven't even got ours yet, but it's like, leaving those behind with every customer. And then I need to embed all of those graphics like into Jobber, onto my website, and then every automation that goes out in Jobber. So every time it says, thank you for booking your on-site assessment with us, like down below, it should say, like, ask us about financing. Like, I mean, it should be dripped in, every automation within Jobber. It should have a graphic image in their quote. It should be a flyer in the attached PDF. I mean, there's definitely a method to getting it across, but we're so new into it. I haven't even fully implemented it yet.
To me, from my training, there's always two things with financing that sticks out. One is telling the homeowner early on in the presentation that it exists and that you have the ability to do it for them, and watch them. Use it as a way as a litmus test to see how you read them when you give them that information. The other is to use it as a workaround to negate any kind of obstacle to closing, right? So you're trying to close the deal, and they're telling you, well, I have to think about it. But you could get around that I think about it objection with, well, we have financing, or you could use the financing as like, well, I don't know if I can afford it. Well, you can. I mean, we have 3 different options you qualify for with the financing at 0%, or no payment for 12 months. Like, you could use it as your way to try to combat that. We can't make a decision yet type of stuff. But yeah, you have to be. The beginning of it is training the salespeople on knowing the numbers, so that they don't get upside down with giving a better price and not realizing they just cut into, let's say like a 0% for 18 months, which is like 13 points or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Some of those dealer fees, like 12 months same as cash, might be 9% or 10%. And that really cuts into the profit margin.
It does. Yeah. And then, what about gutter? You just breezed on it a little while ago, Tina. You asked about gutter covers. Obviously, that is an upsell. Do you guys go crazy? I haven't even, and I was on your website recently, Tina, but I don't know if you do, Colby. Do you guys sell systems? Like, is anybody taking advantage of Alurex or even like a Leaf Blaster Pro, where you're systemizing that and putting it on the website and making it a big deal to the consumer?
Yeah.
We sell Leaf Blaster Pro. Yeah, we sell Leaf Blaster Pro, but we don't really make it seem like it's an all-in-one type of deal. It's like definitely either this and this or that kind of thing. But I definitely, I was working for a couple of friends of mine who actually owned a Connecticut dealership where, water softener and filtration, and their entire presentation and demo is really targeted towards good, better, best. And I've always tried so hard to implement that in our industry, but like the way Jobber presents an estimate, it's really hard to give the same image and presentation as what they were using. But I think that would be huge for our industry, like good, better, best, 5-inch K, 5 inch is like really popular here. That's what a lot of people use. So 6-inch is considered like an upgrade, which would be good, better. And then 6 with a cover is like best, So it's like, I wish that we were presenting that better. I even made this whole brochure one time, similar, ruby, emerald, titanium packages. And, I tried to put the pictures, but it's so hard to deliver that in a really nice estimate. But I feel like that's like key to selling that.
Here's my 2 cents, and for whatever it's worth, good, better, best works. What I did was I took that and I took it to a different level. Good, better, and best means you have to present 3 different things, right, at a minimum. So, like, that's also a lot of work. I talk about good, better, best, but then I tell them right off the bat, we don't do good. I don't do good. I do better, I do best. I really am a premium solutions guy. I'm going to give you the best product. That's what we do. And then they'll talk about price. And I'm like, price is secondary. We're going to be expensive. But people come to us for better or best. They want top quality or they want the ultra premium. That's what we do. We don't even do a 5-inch gutter. I mean, I'm in a different market, but a lot of 5-inch gutter gets sold here every day. But 12 years ago, I decided by design, I sold 2 5-inch machines. I was like, we don't do 5-inch anymore. I just jumped into that mindset, and now it's 6-inch K is my baseline, and then we do a lot of like Kynar half round and a lot of copper and stuff. But that's my approach to the homeowner, because I tend to find that they have, especially with rain gutters, they're getting 3 quotes. It's like, come on. So how do I separate myself from the other 2? Let them fight for scraps on the good. I say I don't do good. I'm your top. And then if they're not a premium product person, okay, I might not win, but I will say, by design, our websites and stuff and our Instagram and social media lure in that consumer to know before they call, these guys are probably going to be the most expensive, but they're going to give me the best, the most premium solution. They tell me that. I look for that feedback constantly, and my office staff reminds me, hey, I'm hearing it a lot again, and I'm like, perfect. That's what we want. We don't want the tire kickers to ever think that we're going to be an option for them, because, God, you know how annoying it is. Even you're an estimator calls you and goes, yeah, they're looking to spend $6 a foot. It's like, don't even give us an opportunity to come out and bid that, because we're never going to give you a price like that.
Yeah, I think that's with Jobber, that's been my biggest frustration probably with Jobber, is not being able to create a sales presentation that we can really, really show the customer our value versus. Are you
on a free trial with GutterApp? Did you take a look at the
I look at it, but no, I haven't. Actually, I think I am on a free trial.
God damn it, George! We got to get this guy a free.
I think I am from GutterCon, but that's the biggest frustration is we've
100%.
tried a bunch of different things, to proposal softwares and Sumo Quote or lots of different things, but none of it integrates with Jobber. So then we're using 2 different systems, and it's like, all right, now we're like going way around to try and get the same.
Jobber's quotes look good. They're the PDF version. They're clean.
They look very similar to all of our competitors who might be a lot cheaper.
So what we're doing with GutterApp is you have the ability to show 1 million different demos. They're already preloaded in the app.
Yeah.
And then depending on what you're selling, you go to that particular presentation. It's copper, another copper presentation. When you're done talking to the homeowner and showing it to them on a tablet or your phone, you could just send it to them too. You could share it with them. If it's an Apple device, you can AirDrop. It's a digital leave behind, like a trifold. So
absolutely,
they're going to think about you when you leave.
Yeah, there's got to be some kind of thing that they have to look at before they see the price that makes them say this company's different than the other 2 companies that I've looked at that are 40-50% cheaper. And when your quote looks exactly the same products,
there's no perceived value.
Yeah, it's more expensive. It's hard unless you're presenting in person and you can say all the things you need to say to the person, to the homeowner. It's very hard to get that value across to the customer through just a generic Jobber quote. And
so for the people, go Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It seems pretty simple for Jobber to add like a presentation tool. I mean, it's like a simple, quick thing. You would think.
Software's crazy like that. You know,
yeah.
Software's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know anything about software, so it may be way more complicated than I think, but it seems simple.
It's hairy.
Yeah.
So, how many salespeople are you pulling this off with? I'm sure a lot of people want to know that. Your numbers are great. How many?
Yeah,
four guys.
So, like last year was two sales reps, and then myself doing some sales off and on. And we've kind of gone back and forth. We haven't gotten past the 2 sales rep mark so far because we keep.
But they're doing $1 million each, right? I mean, they're hitting
exactly, somewhere in that range, and then I'm trickling in a few here and there to make up that other 600,000. But that's one area that we've struggled to scale and build is a true sales team. So we keep getting the second guy, training them, and then they last like a year and falling off, and then hire a new guy and falling off. So we're trying to change the way that we do that process and bringing people on and vetting them and all that stuff.
So we have Corey J getting on Wednesday, right, to talk about exactly this.
I definitely need to get on that.
Yeah, you really do, and that's why Tina and I asked Corey to come in. I mean, there's so many people dealing with the same thing. I mean, it's very frustrating to bring somebody in, spend the time, train them, like you said, give them their chops. And that actually right there and of itself by design is an issue. If you're leaning on one person and he's your everything, it's a setup for failure right there because the dynamic is challenging because you need him and he knows it. And, there is a lot to be said about 2 or 3 salespeople where they're structured in such a way where they're competing. Even subliminally, subconsciously, you're meeting once a week as a group. Everybody's sharing numbers. They're competing, and that's a healthy environment. I've been down. I've done it all. I've made every mistake. So I mean, believe me, I know. But Corey is to shed a lot of light on this on Wednesday. I'm pretty excited about it, Tina. I think he's going to be eye-opening in every. We asked him to be. He's going to really drop some bombs. So I think there's going to be some really good content to glean from that.
He has a lot of knowledge for sure.
Well, you know what it is? He's doing it, right? He's the guy in the gym practicing those 3-pointers. He's human. We'll have conversation and he'll hire 6 and he'll lose 2. I mean, I've been there. It seems like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That tended to be the rhythm in my business. I bring in 2 or bring in 3. I lose 1. I'm like, what the hell? I mean, it's a nonstop cycle, but Corey has been doing it in high volume, so he's got this rhythm down, right? He'll go bring in 5, 6 guys at one clip and have to train all of them. So he is forced to figure this out, and that is what he's done. He's done a good job. So
I feel like that's the secret, and that's kind of where the mistake that I've been making the last couple of years with hiring sales reps is hiring one person. And training that one person, even though you only need one. What I missed was I needed one person, so I hired one person. But really, because I needed one person, I should have hired 3 probably.
So here I am playing Wizard of Oz, but honestly, like the $600,000 or so that you were selling, you should take all of that and push it over to the sales team side. Keep them busy, and then your job then is to just shadow them a couple times a week. And be present and be on top of them, but then you need them to be swamped and busy in leads, and then you got to go find more leads for them, really.
Yeah, and I think I've heard people say instead of always be closing, always be recruiting, and I think that's starting to make a whole lot of sense to me because in the past I would hire somebody and then I'm like, okay, job's done, I'm done, I don't have to do that anymore. And I don't do any interviews.
Well, it's counterintuitive, right? To always be recruiting is scary because you're like, how am I going to afford that?
I don't have a position for them. It's like in my brain, I'm thinking a little too small. I'm like, if I interview these guys, I don't even have a position open. But with sales, a good salesperson doesn't cost you money or make you money. So I should always be, and we all should always be recruiting and trying to find good sales guys.
The other problem is a lot of guys are running way too many leads in a day. They should really be only getting like 4 a day max.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because you want them to focus on those sales and win them. So, like, space them a few hours apart. And stay at Mrs. Jones's house until you get the damn job. Like, you don't have to run out of there and scurry. Like, listen to her story about her dog, and then go for the close. I mean, there's no rush.
Yeah, and when you only have one sales rep, I mean, it's like he's too busy. He's running 5-6 appointments a day, and he doesn't really have the time to sit and connect and make a relationship with each homeowner.
Do you think that because of your sales background that it comes easier to you to find sales guys and bring them in, or?
I think that's honestly the last 2 years, that's been our biggest bottleneck is bringing on new sales guys. So it hasn't come easy to me. That's for sure.
It's tough out there in general. It's tough to find quality people cut from a good cloth. I mean,
But there's things I could have done differently and been more proactive to avoid, getting back into the same position multiple times.
We live and learn. Right now, it's just becoming more valuable to you, so it changes your perspective.
Yep.
Tina, do you have like long-standing salespeople on your side?
Yeah, I have a guy who's been with us almost 3 years now. But I do relate to a lot of what you guys are saying. Like I've had I had 2 guys at once, and then at one time I tried to have 3 or 4, and 2 of them actually had came from leaf filter. Oh, so I thought I'd hit the jackpot. I was like, yeah,
great.
But they actually were terrible at like drawing up the scope of work, and they could care less about the detail of it. They just wanted to like close the job. And I mean, they came in so excited, like I can sell this stuff for $22 a foot, and I'm like, okay. And it actually didn't work out at all. But I do think there is a certain energy that comes with more than one sales guy. But it is nice because when I've had a sales guy come on board, we usually do like a 90-day training period so that they can ride along, and it's kind of into fully commission. Like we don't just throw them out as new commission because you kind of got to build the pipeline.
Yeah, sure.
And if they're pretty motivated, sometimes we shorten that to 4 to 6 weeks, but it just kind of depends on the individual. But we've tried every pay model there is. We tried salary, we tried commission plus bonuses. We've had just commission, like 1099, we've tried it all with sales. But the guy we have now is W-2, and he's our main sales guy. I did have another one that was pretty much full-time throughout the winter to help us in the office with scheduling, and now he's like really good at scheduling, so I don't want to let him go back to the field. So now I feel like I do have to hire another salesperson, but that is tricky because my boyfriend and I started the company together, and he was the one that did sales. So as we would hire people on, he was the one training them. Well, he's virtually completely retired. Like he doesn't work at all now.
So the dream.
Like almost 2 years now. And so we've been great having Jake. So then usually what we'll do is we'll pay Jake a little bit more to train the next sales guy. But it would be nice, like if one of us in the industry had a sales training that I could send a guy to, so that I'm not like pulling from my sales guy, because now I don't have Scott to go in and like train him anymore. So
gutter school's working on that, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Well, like it'll be nice. Like I'm excited too for Corey's class. Like a lot of us, whether you're, a 5-guy operation or 15, like we all need help with sales. Either it's your first sales guy or your second sales guy or your third or whatever. But it is tough. I feel like that personality to hire for seems tough. There's less and less motivated people that are wired that way to chase a sale.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely takes a certain specific personality type, and a lot of things that if you have that personality type, it seems like it would be easy to understand. And from my point of view, I'm like, this is a perfect sales job. Like we give you the leads, easy, gutters are easy, gutter systems are easy. I feel like I can learn it in a week and go out and crush it. But that's not the same case. Unless someone has the same personality as I do, it's not as easy for every person, and that's something I've realized as well. Trying to train people, I'm like, well, why can't he get this? I don't understand why he can't get this.
Excited.
Yeah, it seems really simple, but it's not that simple to everyone.
Yes.
Different personality types.
Patience is definitely a virtue for an owner, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And my long-term successful sales guy he's actually my brother. So nice. He's the one that's been here, throughout all of the mess. It's hard to find someone that's just like him that can just kind of go figure it out. So it's a work.
You got to keep your eyes open. I said this recently on a podcast, but it was Corey, but a few other people do it. I think he picked it up from Tommy Mello. What these guys are doing, these guys that are scaling to these great sizes, like Tommy Mello's like doing $220 million now.
Yeah.
Corey is, I don't know, doing 25 mil, I think, across all his industry, all his businesses, all his services he provides, but he's trying to scale just the same, and he wants to do 150 million. But what they're doing is they're always recruiting, so they always have an eye out. If they're out to dinner with their wife, and they're enjoying the waiter or the waitress, or the bartender is, engaging and customer service oriented. If they see a twinkle in the eye of somebody walking down the sidewalk, they're pulling out a recruitment card out of their pocket, and they're warming up that person to them and saying, "Hey, look, this is who I am. This is what I do. I would be very interested in talking to you outside of this restaurant or outside of this environment, talking about a better role. You can make a lot of money. If you're interested, let's talk." And it doesn't hit. You don't hit it out of the park every time, but man, I've heard stories. I mean, they're pulling guys out of restaurants that turn around and become a phenomenal salesperson. You just never know. You just got to keep trying to find that twinkle-eyed person. That's really the game.
Absolutely.
You have to be in the right mindset for it too. I know me.
Yeah.
I've got a million things going at once. If I'm not in that mindset for it, and then my brain tells me I'll walk by somebody phenomenal on the street, but I'm just not in that mindset.
Yeah.
So you got to wake up in the mirror and train yourself as an owner. I'm always looking. You have to change yourself.
It's a completely different mindset.
100%. Very reachable. It actually makes you a better business owner because your guard is down. You're very presentable and reachable and soft. And, you find that people that present themselves in that manner while also trying to recruit business tend to get a lot of customers that revere them, he's the best. It's a whole lifestyle for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, man. I've been meaning to have this conversation with you.
Yeah.
My Nashville guy, and you're killing it. I'm proud of you, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You inspire me. When do we see you again? You doing big again?
What's that?
When do we see you next?
I guess maybe. Well, I'll probably be at GutterCon next year, but we can always run this back.
Oh, for sure.
Anything. Yeah.
Open door policy, man. We'd love to have you back.
Yeah, it's been fun. You guys are also doing big things and inspiring to watch and learn from you guys.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Colby. It was fun to see you.
Good to see you guys as well.
All right, guys.
See you later.
Have a good one.